No war ends because someone wants peace. Wars end because someone can't continue. And right now, the Russia-Ukraine war is approaching a point where continuing becomes impossible. Not in theory, not in opinion, but in reality. By 2026, this war doesn't end because one side wins, it ends because both sides hit a wall. And today, I'll show you exactly why. When the Russia-Ukraine war began, the world believed one of two things. Either Russia would overwhelm Ukraine in weeks, or Ukraine, backed by the West, would slowly push Russia back. Years later, neither happened. Instead, the war froze into something far more dangerous, a long, grinding conflict where time itself becomes the enemy. Because modern wars aren't just fought with tanks and missiles. They are fought with money, manpower, industry, politics, and public patience. And by 2026, every single one of those pillars starts to collapse. Economic exhaustion. War is bleeding everyone dry. War is expensive. But this war is unsustainably expensive. Russia is burning billions every month to maintain troops, replace destroyed equipment, and stabilize its economy under sanctions. Yes, Russia adapted, but adaptation is not immunity. Oil revenues fluctuate. Sanctions squeeze technology imports. Military production runs 24/7, but at enormous cost. Meanwhile, Ukraine's economy survives almost entirely on Western support. Without US and European aid, Ukraine simply cannot sustain the war effort. And here's the uncomfortable truth. By 2026, Western taxpayers will feel the fatigue, inflation, elections, domestic crises, governments change, priorities change. Wars don't end when weapons run out. They end when funding dries up. Manpower, you can't replace the dead forever. Weapons can be manufactured. Soldiers cannot. Both Russia and Ukraine are facing a silent manpower crisis. Ukraine has lost a significant portion of its trained fighting force. New recruits are younger, older, and less experienced. Training takes time Ukraine doesn't have. Russia, despite its population size, faces a different problem: political tolerance. Every new mobilization risks domestic unrest. Every body baggy roads public support. By 2026, both sides face the same brutal reality. They can still fight, but they can't fight well. And wars are rarely won by exhausted armies. Industrial limits. This is not World War II. Many people assume that if war continues, factories will simply produce more weapons. That's a myth. Modern weapons aren't mass-produced like rifles in the 1940s. Missiles require rare components. Tanks need advanced optics. Air defense systems depend on global supply chains. The West is already struggling to replenish stockpiles. Russia is relying on older equipment and limited external suppliers. By 2026, the bottleneck isn't willingness, it's capacity. You can't fight a high-intensity war indefinitely when your factories can't keep up with the battlefield. Political pressure. Democracies and dictatorships both crack. Ukraine depends on democratic allies, and democracies have a weakness: elections. Leaders must answer to voters who eventually ask, how long? How much? And for what? Russia, on the other hand, faces internal elite pressure, economic strain, regional dissatisfaction, quiet power struggles behind closed doors. By 2026, political survival becomes more important than territorial gain on both sides. Wars don't just end on maps, they end in capitals. The strategic stalemate, no path to total victory. This is the most important point. Neither Russian or Ukraine has a realistic path to total victory. Ukraine cannot fully reclaim territory without risking escalation beyond its control. Russia cannot decisively win without massive mobilization and massive risk. NATO won't directly intervene. Russia won't retreat completely. This creates a deadlock where continuing the war produces diminishing returns, more losses, more destruction, less progress. By 2026, military logic gives way to political necessity, global pressure. The world wants this war contained. The longer the war continues, the more it destabilizes the global system. Energy markets, food supplies, trade routes, geopolitical alignments. Major global players don't want escalation, they want containment. By 2026, pressure for a frozen conflict, ceasefire, or negotiated settlement becomes overwhelming, not because peace suddenly feels good, but because chaos becomes too costly. So what happens after 2026? This doesn't mean peace. It means transition, a frozen conflict, a negotiated pause, a redefined battlefield. Wars rarely end cleanly. They fade into something else, but one thing is clear. The Russia-Ukraine war cannot continue in its current form beyond 2026, not because leaders want it to end, but because reality forces it to. Final thought, strong outro. History doesn't care about intentions, it cares about limits, and by 2026, the Russia-Ukraine war reaches its limit of money, manpower, weapons, politics, and patience. The breaking point isn't coming, it's already here. The only question left is what replaces the war.